the tarot has all of it, right, in its 78 archetypes. It has it all. It's balanced, light and shadow. It has its vision of the elemental structure of a human psyche. I mean, are there other ways to describe the human soul? There are countless ways. Cultures have come up with tons and tons of different ways of describing the human soul. But, you know, the tarot with its 4 minor arcana and its major arcana, with its 5 suits, it's actually a pretty common way to break down the wholeness of a human soul. Earth, air, fire, and water, and then the capacious ether, the space, the full cosmic egg from Fool to World of the major arcana that contains it all. The macro for the microcosmic details in the 4 minor arcana. I mean, it's a structure that, you know, we see in a lot of world cultures. The details almost don't matter of how the vocabulary of the human soul gets worked out. The details don't really matter. What matters is that individual practitioners work with a given system, a given lexicon, a given vocabulary of images long enough and with heartfulness enough and with good support of a community of teachers, of comrades, that you begin to make the links and weave the tapestry. You elaborate the wholeness of the mandala. So, you know, mindful tarot, what I teach, what I practice, it's one path through it. I've enjoyed this path. It's a path that I haven't been able to do on my own, right? That's the other amazing thing, is that I need the cards. As it turns out, I need lots and lots of cards. How many decks is too many? I don't know yet. It's my library. And I need a community. I need my sangha. We Buddhists would say I need my fellowship, my like-minded team, my tribe, my comrades at arms, comrades at cards. So with that in mind, I'm gonna take things indoors now, I think. It's a cool May evening. I'm still grappling with a bit of the corona. And I'm gonna look at the remaining decks on my desks. But I'm going to do it, I think, just pulling maybe a card or two from each and sort of elaborating reading as I go along. Okay, see you in a moment. So, lovelies, I want to do this show and tell a little bit differently than the last Decks on Desks video that I did. You know, my intention with this is to share the decks I pulled out, both for my reading desk and my writing desk. These are the decks that are like, you know, front and center in my heart at the moment. And my first video is really featuring a lot of the decks that I'm working on, that I'm studying with right now, or that represent kind of lines of inquiry. I mean, there were also a few decks that were just there because they're beautiful and I want to be playing with them more than I have been. But, you know, I was thinking with the decks I showed you the other day, I've been thinking about the question of archetype and kind of prepping for the work that I'm going to be doing in the class that I'm offering on May 14th on archetypes of tarot, really trying to think about, you know, how to present the tarot and its 78 archetypal images, how to really talk about that, how to talk about the ways in which the tarot supports this inner work, the exploration of self, and expression of self that can only really happen through the language of symbol and image. And, you know, to figure out a way to provide, as I was saying, just enough Jung. That's my new tagline, just enough Jung, not too much, just enough Jung to help us make sense of the way the tarot's mandala works. So, you know, my work on archetype, or my work with Mouse and Pips, which is also actually related to the archetypal tarot work. That's the stuff that was animating those cards, why those cards are out on my desks. These cards, and this is just a portion of what I want to show you now, these are more, I think this represents more like sentimental favorites, or decks that right now are just, I'm really crushed out on. And like, I know that they actually speak to me, to a kind of integrity of my own heart that, I mean, are they my favorite decks? I'm not even sure that I can say that the decks that I'm about to show you are my favorite tarot, but they're very dear, and they're, that's why they're out on my desks right now. Always close at hand. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently than the last one, where I was sort of manically, or as I said in that video, cartomanically, get it? Cartomancy, cartomanic, ripping through the decks, just flipping card after card. I'm going to instead, with this, do a little bit more thoughtful pulling of cards and just seeing what there is to say. So a little bit of a show and tell, a little bit of a open reading. And I have to apologize in advance. I'm still like, Lady Corona is still having her way with me. I'm a little loopy. I'm like exhausted, but then also kind of wired, which I thought was the NyQuil, but I haven't taken any NyQuil today. So I just think it's this fucking virus. It just does weird shit. That's the scientific explanation. It does weird shit. But I'm recovering. Okay, so without further ado, so, you know, come as no surprise to you that the Wild Unknown, Kim Kranz's deck, you know, a deck that I love dearly, that I've worked with to a great extent. This deck is always out and about. And I think I'm just going to now shuffle it and pull a card. Just asking what it is that the Wild Unknown has to offer right now. Magician. Okay. That's a nice card to pull. And then the Lonely Dreamer, and this is the first edition of this deck, with the prayer rug backs, which I think the third edition is now featuring as well. So Melissa Weatherspoon's very beautifully curated, really quite magnificently, I've said so much about this deck so many times, but just really the way she works with collage, you know, just this very, very simple suggestion of the wands, you know, the suit elements. She manipulates the cards very, very gently. And always, I think, with a great sense of the integrity of Odilon Redon, of that symbolist painter's imagery. This is one of her extra cards. Anyway, okay, so this is the first edition of The Lonely Dreamer. Three of Cups. And Raven's Prophecy, Maggie Stiefvater's deck. You know, this is a deck that, if you've read her incredible young adult cycle of 4 books, the Raven Boy cycle, the imagery, you know that the hands that appear in some of the major arcana and as the suit of swords, that this is a reference to the character Adam, and you know, the raven itself, you know what that's referring to, and what the roses might mean, and how the forest image relates to the image of caves water. So if you've read the books, this imagery is powerful, but you don't need to have read the books because it's just evocative. And the fact that Maggie Stiefvater both wrote those amazing books, and then did this artwork. And, you know, she also, I love that Page of Cups. And she also composed the music that's in the audiobooks, which, by the way, the audiobooks are awesome. I just recently went through the cycle again from start to finish, listening to the audiobooks, and they are fantastic. I highly, highly recommend. But this is, you know, this has been one of my favorite decks. This led me, love that moon. This led me to the books. I found this deck before I found the books. I haven't read Scorpion Races yet, and I don't, she has another tarot deck based on that novel of hers. I've heard it's really good, but I sort of love the Raven Boys so much that I don't want to lose that universe. Anyway, so this deck, quite a powerful deck. Raven Prophecy, 5 of Wands. Okay. And then we have Zara Kitten Shop's gorgeous Playful Heart. Things are easier than you think. You know, her tagline, cuteness is my sacred space. You know how you can be both cute and sacred, both playful and deep. I mean, it doesn't hurt that the cardstock in this deck is so fabulous. But I love that High Priestess. But this is like, I don't go for cute. I mean, I kind of like cute. But, you know, it's not like my general tarot aesthetic. But then there's this deck. And Zara herself is like one of the most lovely and generous and wise people. She's such a gem. Working on a Marseille deck right now. Zara, get that deck to market. I want it. We need it. We need a Kitten Shops Marseille. 7 of Wands. Okay. It'll come as no surprise to you that the Aquarian Tarot is among my kind of sentimental favorites. This is Conrad Stein Vintage Aquarian Tarot in the mini version, which is, I think, almost exactly the same size. Sorry, I'm getting messy here. Exactly the same size as, just adjusting the light, as the Tarot in a Tin version, but it's been antiqued. I actually really love what Conrad's done with the artwork here, and it's on that wonderful Make Playing Cards. Is it Standard Smooth? It might be Standard Smooth or Superior Smooth. It's great. It's lovely cardstock. I would prefer this if it were more of a standard tarot size. I'm not a big fan of teeny decks. I mean, I like them. Again, I kind of like cute things, but I kind of don't like cute things. And he has, I've shown it on this channel before, he has a large size version of this, which is bigger than the Aquarian Tarot itself. It's a slightly larger format, and that's a little bit too big. So I'm waiting for the Goldilocks. And it may just be that the proportions of the cards make it impossible to really get the Goldilocks version. Look at that King of Swords. Anyway, Aquarian Tarot. Okay. The Empress. And the Astara Tarot, the indie edition of this deck. So, you know, I fell in love with this deck as a Fool's Dog app. And craved it and tried. I missed it when it was out as an indie deck, and then I could never find the indie version. Schiffer came out with an edition which the cardstock was glossy and cardboardy, and you know, I came to convince myself that there actually had never been an indie version and I just had made that up. And then one day, I just lucked out on on eBay. So this is a deck that I haven't actually worked with that much, even though I've now had it for about a year. It's not an easy deck, right? The artists They're four artists, four women, all, I believe, British Columbia, if I'm remembering correctly. And they're all friends, but they have really, really different artistic styles. So each of them takes one of the minor arcana, and then they split the major arcana cards. And they're very distinctive styles, right? They don't look like each other's styles. There's a similar color palette, and then they have sort of a, look at that gorgeous, gorgeous Queen of Swords. And they have some agreements, like, you know, there will be a frog in every 3 card in the minor arcana. So you'll just see a different edition of the frog. And it's not clear to me why. I mean, I'm sure there was an association for them, like what animal they put, you know, why there would be a rabbit in all the 4s. But it's not obvious what it is about 4 that speaks rabbit. Anyway, so it's a hard deck to, it's a really hard deck to kind of learn. And, you know, for my archetypal interest in tarot, that's actually wonderful. A deck that, oh, love it. Okay, Page of Swords. A deck that really makes you have to work with it a lot, like frequently, so that you remember what cards you're dealing with. You really have to meet it. You have to meet it and live with it and get to know the face of each of the 78 archetypes. So, Astara Tarot. This is another sentimental favor, my kind of modified version of the Tarot of the She, Emily Carding's deck that, you know, has this really kind of intense, sort of otherworldly, I mean, like extraterrestrial, sort of a little unsettling fae energy, exacerbated or intensified, I should say, by her sort of self-tutored artistic style. You know, there's a slight kind of roughness to her artistic style, which I adore. And then this renaming of the 4 minor arcana in a way that ties them very closely to the natural elements, warrior being, you know, fire, you know, that sort of thing, but also to movements of artistic creative endeavor. Very powerful deck, I think, in a way that I don't quite know why, but it's a powerful deck. Anyway, this is my study version, which, you know, I butchered it, but I love it. So, Tarot of the She. Okay. So, we have 2 5 of Wands here, 3 of Cups, the Magician, the Empress, the Page of Swords, the 7 of Wands. A lot of fire energy, a lot of wands, a lot of wandsiness. This intensity. I mean, this is definitely this moment in my life in general where it feels like a real pivotal turning point, a kind of place where I'm dealing with a sense of potential creative block, this action frustrated, that strong sense of conflict that Emily Carding brings forward. But, you know, also just that power of the competitive edge of the classic 5 of Wands, fire, meeting fire. So there's an aliveness and a sense of things being on the line. You know, I always think of the 7 of Wands as the Bodhisattva card. And wow. Look at Zara's image here. With these rays of light. What? This one sock on, one sock off. Meeting and channeling the energy. So, you know, it is a time of, for me, this speaks volumes. I think this resonates. A time of potentially channeling creative energy, but also not quite knowing what to do with it. And even just thinking about what this week has been, where I've been sick with COVID and just grappling with what to do with my energy. So fire, how does fire get, how do we meet the blocks in our lives? And then the Page of Swords. You know, I always think of this card as learning to, this kind of hypervigilance. I love the image of the hair in this, and the masked sort of Middle Eastern figure. Yeah. So I think of the Page of Swords as a kind of hypervigilant energy that hasn't quite figured out what to do with the sharpness, with the quickness, with the responsiveness of the sword, with the way the sword can cut through and discern and carve a path, and is ready, but not quite knowing. Not quite knowing. And then there's so much encouragement with these three cards, the threes here of the Empress 3 and the 3 of Cups. This reminder of community and celebration and what it means to be vulnerable in the midst of your Sangha, vulnerable with community. And the Empress I love the stateliness of this Empress. Just this stable mother figure. I feel like I've been working with a lot of mother energy recently. There's a lot I could say about that, but, you know, sort of goes into the circumstances of my life, but really feeling a lot of that maternal energy and some of this creative fire. It's like how much of that has to do with kind of harnessing the maternal and the growth of this time in my life. And then there's the Magician, where I began. Yeah, that's kind of powerful. The possibility of alignment, of harnessing all the forces. So how do I meet the fire of this moment and bring things into alignment with community, with a sense of growth and maternal creative nourishment? Okay, let me take that question into the next round of cards. So now things get a little bit random and chaotic. So there are some decks here that I've had for a very long time, like the Hilda Tarot, but haven't ever worked with. And just recently was like, this is a beautiful deck. This is a beautiful deck. It's so gentle and sweet. It reminds me a little bit of the airiness of, it's very different in a lot of ways, different aesthetically than the Aquarian Tarot, but that kind of sense of stillness and kind of placid, almost, I mean, there's just not a lot of drama in the characters, but it's so, the watercolor is really sweet. And I was thinking, you know, I should work with this deck because this would be a deck that actually would work well with clients. And it's a classic, and you know, it's a lovely RWS clone. It's sweet. So the Hilda Tarot, I think 1995. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. It's, you know, it's a 90s deck. Let's see if I can read this through my iPad. Yeah, 95. So the Hilda Tarot, which I don't think I've ever read with. I mean, like literally, I don't think I've ever read with. I've had it in my collection for a long time, but so the Hilda Tarot is saying, you know, I'm not so static. I have force and power, honest. I have 8 of Wands in me. Okay. All right, Hilda. And then, you know, a deck like the Way Home Tarot, which, I mean, this is a brilliant deck. I was just talking about this in my Facebook group today. I put out the challenge of people show me a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, 10 of Cups, that doesn't have a family in it. You know, no family, no rainbow. And I think this is just a brilliant depiction of the 10 of Cups. You know, when you look at it next to the 7 of Cups and the sort of sense of things not being aligned, being out of whack, and what does it mean to bring everything into alignment, to I love how this looks like a spine to kind of align the human being. But it's just this very clean and clear, and just spare without being sparse. I mean, this Seven of Swords, it's so clever, but it's not the Hierophant. It is really thoughtful. Like you could actually, a lot of these cards, sorry, it's upside down. A lot of these cards you could really draw out their meaning into volumes. But it also has that kind of archetypal feel where, you know, you can glance it at an instant. And it's cool. It's a cool deck. I mean, cool as in temperature. It's kind of what I wish the Fountain Tarot felt more like. That's a deck that I need to spend some more time with. I haven't worked with it since I actually first bought it. And I should take it out. That's a very, also temperature-wise, very cool deck. The Anthill. This is a fabulous deck. I should do a video sometime on decks that don't have human characters. Oh, look at that. Wow, okay. 8 of Wands. We have a theme here. And then a deck like the Volatile, which the minute I had it in my hands, I was like, this deck, this is a deck that speaks to me. You know, I mean, some of it is the production quality. It has that like genius linen texture that is my favorite cardstock, and then the quality of the art. You know, this is just, it's beautifully done. It's beautifully done. It's like an instant classic, and then the alchemical feeling of it. But I haven't worked with it enough, and I certainly haven't worked at all with the suit of vessels, that 5th minor arcana suit that it adds. Look at that, two of swords. So I don't know, with this deck and that Queen of Swords, it really needs a lot of love and attention. Oh wow. And that's one of the reasons it stays out on my writing table, because I love it. 9 of Swords. It stays out on my writing table because I love it, but also because I need to really work with it. And then the Ellis deck. And this is the plastic edition, the most recent version of the plastic edition, which is now sold out. So the borderless plastic edition. And I had to get this. Actually, this artwork is not my thing exactly. Although I love the boldness of the graphic images, the sort of, you know, kind of graphic novel illustrator vibe of it, and the color palette. But it's not really my thing. But when this deck first came out in the plastic borderless edition, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe it was longer than that, I really wanted it, and I almost bought it, and someone talked me out of it, and I bought, instead of this, I bought Tina Gong's Golden Thread, which I don't regret at all. That is an amazing deck, and the plastic cardstock that she uses in that is still, I think, actually the best plastic cardstock out there, maybe. I don't know where she sourced it or how it's so fantastic, but it shuffles incredibly. It feels wonderful. That, and also the Seven Sphere Tarot, her Marseille kind of Waite-Smith hybrid-y deck. So then when this was reissued last year, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta get it. And it was expensive. It wasn't cheap, but look at that 6 of Rods. I'm kind of a sucker for anything with a fox. So, and these are fantastic backs. So the Ellis Tarot, it's not exactly my thing, but I'm very attached to it in a way that I don't quite understand. King of Pentacles. All right. Well, if you're going to be talking about attachment to the material world, he's kind of the master. Yeah, there he is. And this, the gingham edition of the Hilda Tarot. This is such a delightful deck. And not exactly, I mean, I don't know. Is this just fun? Is this just a smile? Or can one read with this deck? The jury's still out. I literally have not worked with it in any meaningful way. And that's why it's on my reading table, because I love this deck. I wanted this deck so badly. And, sorry, the light, it's getting dark outside and I don't have really good lighting in here. So apologies. I mean, what's not to adore? Two of Cups. Oh. But how does one read with Hilda? Well, in community, enjoying, celebrating. Okay, another Three of Cups for me. There's a message here. This is a very recent acquisition. The Naturescapes Tarot. I do not love the backs, I have to say, but this is a very cool deck. I love that Queen of Cups. So, you know, it's this landscape photography evoking all 78 archetypes through images from across the world. And some of it is, you know, kind of more, what do I want to say, more sort of clearly representational, you know, the sort of sense of renewal in the Death card, sort of that sense of moving on, or the sense of entrapment in the Eight of Swords. And some of it is less like, you know, why this is King of Wands. So I think this deck offers a tremendous, again, from that standpoint, sorry, shaking my camera, from that standpoint of archetype, a really tremendous, oh, wow. Okay, so, I mean, this one evokes the Waite-Smith imagery of ships out to sea pretty directly. But I was going to say, I think this, you know, challenges us in the way that I find archetypally useful, where we have to start to associate directly to each of the cards to really make sense, to make a connection, to have the gestalt, the fullness of the image really speak to us. Okay, last in this group, I'm sorry, I keep shaking my iPad here. Last in this group is the notorious JBG. This is Julia Peekaboo Rose. Is it Juliet? Maybe it's Juliet. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name. Anyway, it's her wonderful Jasmine Beckett Griffith deck, which, you know, if I was going to say, like, you know, the Ellis Tarot isn't really my aesthetic, I would, you know, just as quickly say, like, creepy cute, totally not my aesthetic. And yet, along with my Nicoletta Ciccole, like, there's something that really, really draws me in with these images. And then I love the decision to have the purple border. I mean, I think this is just, I love the bridge size. I love the alternate cards. I think I might have kept all of them in here. But I haven't read with this deck. It's been sitting since I got it. It's been sitting saying, play with me, play with me. So, you know, like of this of this group, I need to read with the Hilda to see if I can read with the Hilda. I need to read with this because I think there's a lot here. And I kind of need to figure out what the Ellis deck is doing. And then some deep study here. Actually, all of these I want to read with. But Jasmine, Beckett, Griffith. What do you got? The Lovers. Okay, so yeah. So this sense of a kind of things are happening. You know, that kind of fiery energy that I had in the first draw of cards in the fives of wands. The 5 of wands is and the 7 of wands. And now it's like, yep, things are, lightning striking. There's some kind of ignition happening here. And sometimes that just feels like anxiety. And then this reminder of community, of kind of settling into that air of earth, that kind of capacious feeling of bounty. And just as I'm sitting with all of my tarot decks and this sort of spiritual, you know, the ways in which the spiritual work that I do, that I teach, it's so grounded these days in a very strong sense of image and art and method. I'm getting to meet some amazing tarot practitioners who I'm working with and guiding and mentoring, and who are also, you know, as teaching always happens, our students teach us, building a community, being part of a bigger community. I love it. And the 3 of Wands, that sense of embarkation and the sense of a possibility of this integration, this uniting of the various parts of me. The way the Lovers really bespeaks a kind of pulling together of body and soul, of yin and yang, of shadow and light, that sense of becoming whole. But, you know, 9 of Swords is always a possibility, right? There's always that possibility of just being overwhelmed by the edginess of it all. All right, I'm looking around, and there are a few more decks. Fifth Spirit Tarot. I just got this, although it is the indie deck. I hadn't gotten it when it first came out, and then I was able to get a copy of the indie deck because, you know, the cardstock. Again, cardstock, it's all in the cardstock. And how could I not own a deck with this strength card? I mean, this is every fucking thing. This is every fucking thing. So I'm not going to pull from this deck because it's still in order. I haven't even done a real walkthrough. It's very new to my collection, and it's still in my box. I haven't decided if I'm going to get a bag for it, if I'm going to leave it in the box. It still has that kind of new tarot feel, new tarot smell. So this Spirit Tarot, very excited to start to work with this. And then the Card Postal Tarot, which I got about a year ago, I think. And I got it not long after I gotten the Relative Tarot. And I love the Relative Tarot. It's a tarot that I've had some really amazing readings with. And this is, I mean, the production quality of this deck is amazing. Sorry, it's kind of noisy as I'm shuffling through it. The cardstock and this sort of vintaged, the cardstock isn't edged, but it has this beautiful vintaged feel to it. It's a beautiful deck. I love all of the aesthetic choices, and it's also a really funny deck. I love Jane, the artist. You know, she really has she has this whole huge collection of vintage postcards and photographs, and And so she, you know, she curated this deck with a lot of different options. And some of her choices, like this Seven of Swords is fantastic. You know, she collaged, obviously. She did sometimes really, really well. That was a great Ten of Wands. And then, you know, like, it's hysterical. this Knight of Cups. So, and then 2 last decks. My Bonefire Tarot, new to me, but a deck that I've also known for a long time in the Fool's Dog app, and was able to get this modified version. This is like a really deep deck. I've already had some really great readings from it. I love that Seven of Swords. It has one of the best High Priestesses ever. That's the image I chose for the bag. And just look at her. So, the Bonefire Tarot, which is just, this is an aesthetic that speaks to me. And then, last but absolutely not least, is the Gentle Tarot, which is never too far from me, although I don't read with this very often. But, you know, this deck, even though I don't read with it very often, it's somehow, it's really kind of central in my heart, and I don't quite know why. I mean, again, sometimes this is a question of cardstock. I got the linen edition of it, which it's not a linen that I like, but this original edition, it just feels really, my hands are very happy to hold this deck. And the colors, and the generous depictions of bodies, human and non. This deck made it into, when I was doing a video about my 10 top tarot decks ever, or I can't remember what it was called. I think that was the tag, 10 top decks or something. This was kind of a dark horse that snuck in. It was like I hadn't been reading with it at all, and then I thought, no, but how could I not have the Gentle Tarot in there? So that's what we got, folks. These are the decks that are on my desks. And yeah, I hope this was fun to watch. Sorry about the light and the audio quality and all the things that, you know, my goofy YouTube channel and my limited audio-visual capacities at this point. Thank you for sharing your time with me, making time for me. And as always, thank you so much for your practice. Toodles.